The third day in the castle sees 21 players remaining, as one was murdered on night 1, one was banished last night, and one was murdered last night. With 3 faithful gone, will the remaining faithful start hunting down traitors? Who did the traitors pick to murder between Jonathan, Crael, Pascal, and Penelope? The breakfast room is currently empty, smelling like fresh bread and sweet fruits. Cassandra enters the room first and happily sits down first. Darren comes through the door right after, and Cassandra happily waves good morning to her boyfriend. In confessional, Cassandra says that her and Darren need to evaluate what they are doing wrong. They got a few votes at last night's banishment, so she wants to clear their names today. Cassandra tells Darren that she had a rough sleep because of everything that went down yesterday. Darren understands what she means and says that their main problem is that they entered the game as an already formed duo. Cassandra just doesn't understand why people don't look at other pre-existing relationships, such as Alessandro and Danielle, or Alessandro and Cristefani. Darren says that it's very possible one of those 3 are a traitor to spice things up based on them being exes. In confessional, Darren says that there's something not right about Danielle and Cristefani. They are obviously in a somewhat formed reality star alliance, and they seem so perfectly placed in the middle of that alliance. Cristefani barely spoke at yesterday's roundtable, and Danielle doesn't seem so competitive as a faithful. He will take more time to explore them as traitor options before officially calling them out at the roundtable. Back in the room, Olivia walks in, followed by Yasu, Sasha, Amira, and Jonathan. Sasha then says that she wants to share her suspicion at the moment, and that's James. Him being a nurse doesn't faze her at all, yet he's trying to play into that innocent role so hard. In confessional, Sasha says that she wants to ensure more heat gets onto James because if he is a traitor, he won't murder her. It makes no sense to stay quiet in this game as a faithful, so she's going to jump onto people's backs as much as possible. Yasu then tells Sasha that he can see a world where James is actually a traitor, but he needs more on him before he votes him. For now, he's more concerned about the Haley and Pablo situation. Cassandra agrees that Haley and Pablo are super suspicious. In her eyes, Haley is more suspicious based on the shuffling noises during the choosing of the traitors. Next to enter the breakfast room is Cristefani, followed by Crael, and then Haley. Haley crosses her arms and asks the others who here is talking crap about her, and then she laughs to herself, claiming she's joking. Sasha rolls her eyes and publicly says that everyone is dragging her name and it shouldn't come as a surprise. In confessional, Cristefani admits that having Haley on the traitor team is rough. She's a massive target for the faithful because she stupidly moved around in her seat when she was selected as a traitor. That's on her. Crystal then enters the room next, and Pablo comes in shortly after. Pablo asks everyone if there are any new names right now as possible suspects, and Sasha mentions James. She obviously has to point out that Haley and Pablo are bigger suspects for everyone, but James is another person on her suspect list that she can't erase. Pablo says that although he doesn't understand why people still think it's him, he is intrigued by this new accusation towards James. Nita then walks into the room next, and everyone cheers for her survival. As she sits down, Pablo asks Nita if she thinks he's the traitor, and she rubs his back, telling him she thinks Haley is the traitor. In confessional, Nita says that Haley will have to go tonight. She might have connections to Emma, which screams a betrayal is incoming. She would much rather move forward in this game with Cristefani, Olivia, and James. Back in the room, Kira comes in next, followed by James, Emma, and then Penelope. James then says it's just down to 4 people who have yet to enter the room: Alessandro, Zach, Darla, and Pascal. Pablo says that it's very clear the traitors would be setting him up if Zach gets murdered. It's so obvious to him. Kira then says that she actually agrees, and if Zach is murdered, she will be 85% sure that Pablo is innocent. Amira says that Pascal is a huge strategic threat for the traitors if he's indeed a faithful, so it's possible he was killed. In confessional with Crystal, she says that it would be a huge move if the traitors killed Pascal. It would be unfortunate because he is Team Reality Stars, and not Team whatever Emma is with her newbies. Back in the room, everyone sees Alessandro walk in, and not too long after, Zach comes in. Crael then says out loud that it's down to Pascal and Darla. Kira says she hopes it wasn't Darla, and in confessional, Kira reveals that Darla is her girl in this game. She would scream if she was murdered this soon because she won't have a partner in crime anymore to hunt down traitors. In another confessional with Emma, she hopes Darla was murdered just on a personal level. She loves to jump onto accusations, such as the Haley accusations. It would not surprise her if Darla decides to jump her and Penelope next. She just seems like the type to do that. In the room, Yasu whispers to Sasha that James seems so out of the ordinary, and Sasha tells him that he sees exactly what she's seeing. In confessional, Yasu says that James is acting very strange at breakfast today. The way he speaks just seems super fake, as if he's trying so hard to seem interested in who really got murdered last night. Back in the room, everyone hears footsteps by the door, and they watch in silence as the door slowly opens. Then, in comes Darla as the last survivor, and everyone is shook to their core that Pascal was murdered so soon. Darla asks who got killed, and Emma says it was Pascal. Darla is in shock and says she did not expect him to go so soon. Nita meanwhile leans on the table, acting very surprised and a bit heartbroken. Pablo comforts her and tells her that this game will be hard for them each and every day. They will lose people they really care for, and Nita says she'll be fine. It's hard, but she'll move on from this. In confessional, Nita grins because she finally got what she has been looking forward to for years now, and that's getting Pascal out. She apologizes to Pascal for murdering him, but she also doesn't feel bad because she wants to get far into this game and cannot do that if he's in the way. In a flashback, Pascal sits in the confessional room, finding out that he was murdered. He's pretty upset he was murdered so soon into the game. He barely got to play the game. It's evident the traitors are threatened by him, and he's almost sure there were 2 or 3 reality star traitors who pushed for him to get murdered. The stars know him the best. They know he's a strategic threat who made it far in the 2 seasons he played. Even though his traitor's journey is over, he's looking forward to future opportunities. With breakfast now done, the players have to alter their thoughts a bit now that Pascal was murdered, a huge shock to the castle. Haley is in a room with Pablo and Crael, and Haley says that she's starting to seriously consider Darla as a traitor because of how quick she was to jump onto the train of accusations going to her. Pablo agrees that Darla is acting super weird. In confessional with Haley, she says that she's going to have to trust her gut and just continue working with Pablo. If he trusts her, she has no reason to try getting rid of him. Despite her team telling her to flip on Pablo, it just doesn't sit right with her. Crael then tells Haley and Pablo that he's willing to support this idea that Darla is a traitor because it is indeed a bit strange how quick she was to jump Haley yesterday. Haley says that both Darla and Nita are her top suspects now. Nita is trying to play this motherly role, but she's actually a witch. In confessional, Pablo says that today will be very interesting because he'll observe Darla's every move. She's high on his suspect list because of how quick she was to accuse Haley after Haley was accused by many. It just felt so sudden and out of character for Darla, considering she barely talks game with people, but when it comes to Haley, she's a huge push for her to get banished. In another part of the castle grounds, Darla chats with Amira, Sasha, Christephanie, Danielle, and Yasu, telling them that she thinks Haley is the safest vote for the faithful tonight. In confessional, Darla explains that Haley has done nothing to prove that she is faithful. Her vote for Cassandra last night proves that. No faithful will vote someone based on personal feelings. They always provide some proper reasoning, but Haley doesn't do that. Christephanie then says that she's willing to go with this Haley vote, and Danielle jumps onto that too as it's worth a shot considering the amount of suspicions she has gotten so far. Sasha then points out that she's personally looking at James as a potential traitor. Haley and James seem to be the biggest suspects for her. Yasu says he backs Sasha's thoughts, especially with James because of how quick his demeanor changes sometimes. In confessional, Christephanie sighs because not only is Haley in deep danger, but so is James now. Sasha and Yasu are the main two pushing for James to go, but they can easily rally more people in the coming rounds. She's gonna have to warn Nita and Olivia somehow so they are aware that James is in danger. Later on, Krael finds Emma and Penelope alone, so he fills them in on this new idea that Darla could be a traitor. Emma smirks because she wouldn't mind taking out Darla. She likely suspects her, so she'll suspect her back. Penelope doesn't feel like Darla is the traitor though. She is leaning more towards Nita. Emma says that Nita is a hag, but unfortunately, hags don't have to be traitors in this game. In confessional, Penelope says that to her, Nita is acting like chopped liver. She's not playing into her motherly role that people tend to say she plays in these types of games. To her, Nita is just trying to look like a dumb faithful a little too hard. She says this because why would she think Emma is a traitor? That should be the last person people should consider is a traitor. Back with the group, Krael says that he's down to vote Darla tonight because he's really unsure if Haley truly is a traitor or not. He's leaning more towards Darla right now. Sasha chats with Crystal and Olivia, letting them know that she thinks James is a traitor because of his demeanor shifts. Crystal doesn't seem so sure though because she's leaning more towards Haley and Emma. Olivia says that she's actually growing more suspicious of Krael because he's floating between group chats, trying to gather information and agree with it. It just seems very fake to her. In confessional, Olivia says that she's slowly but surely spreading Krael's name, and she'll continue over the coming days. He's a threat for the traitors, but there are other names right now that need to be prioritized for murder before him. The best she could do is try saving James from the hot seat and put Krael into it. Meanwhile, Darren and Cassandra chat with Amira, Nita, and Zach. Darren tells the group that something's not right with Christephanie and Danielle in his eyes. Him and Cassandra actually discuss the possibility that one or both of them are traitors because they are coming into this game with some sort of strained relationship with Alessandro. They've been pretty quiet as possible faithful, so perhaps that means they aren't actually what they say they are. Amira says that she's leaning more towards voting out Haley though. Maybe they can keep Chris and Danielle on the back burner for now. Zach thinks Pablo should go if Haley ends up as a traitor. He's more suspicious than Chris and Danielle in his eyes. In confessional, Amira feels like she has a good thing going with a lot of the reality stars right now. This is why she wants to vote out Haley and Pablo before Danielle and Christephanie. At least if Chris or Danielle are traitors, they will hopefully keep her safe from the upcoming murders. Haley and Pablo meanwhile don't have a good relationship with her, especially Pablo now. Back with the group, Cassandra says she might try to push for Christephanie at the banishment tonight to push her buttons a bit. She wants to see how Chris reacts and if her attitude changes once her name comes up. Amira says that it's a good strategy, basically putting people out of their comfort zone. In confessional, Nita is admittedly now worried about Chris because her name is being spread around by the power couple, Darren and Cass. However, Chris is her number one right now in the traitor turret, so she needs to protect Chris to the best of her ability and make sure Haley goes home instead. We're now at the time of the day where the faithful crown ceremony takes place, so everyone sits in the courtyard, ready for the next shield vote. Once again, the players who want to volunteer for the shield may stand up, but as a reminder, they will not vote at tonight's banishment. With that, everyone is counted down to volunteer or remain seated, and 4 people stand up, those being Alessandro, Zach, Nita, and Darren. In confessional, Nita hopes the faithful and of course her own traitor family vote her for the shield so they have the shield yet again for themselves. Thankfully, James did not volunteer because his name is seemingly being spread by Sasha and Yasu. Back with the cast, Darren says that it's evident the couple are targets in here, so he feels much safer being in the running for the shield than not. Zach says that he simply has this feeling the traitors have a perfect chance to snipe him out of the game for focusing so much on Pablo as a traitor. He'd like to stay another day in the game, so the shield is the way to go for him. Alessandro then explains that he hasn't really come out with too much information for the group yet, but he promises he will tonight. If he catches onto a traitor through speaking up, he'd love to have some protection from murder in the process. Nita then tells the group to vote with their gut for who they believe is the safest faithful from these four standing. She'd love their votes of course, but everyone should vote with their gut feeling. With that, the players vote in secret, and in confessional James says that he's gladly gonna vote for Nita today because the traitors need that shield in their pocket. He found out that Sasha and Yasu are gunning for him, so he needs to take a step back and not put himself forward for the shield again. He needs to vote tonight to potentially keep himself alive in the game. In another confessional, Crystal says that Darren is her safest choice right now as he and Cassandra are trustworthy in her eyes. If she had to pick a second safe player, she'd pick Zach from the four nominees because he seems the most authentic in his accusations. Once everyone has secretly voted, the results are final, and someone may or may not have the shield. In confessional, Zach cheers as he got the shield. He's glad that people see him as an honest figure within the castle. He's going to do his best to put Haley and Pablo under fire because they are very likely working together as traitors. With night approaching, the players have to get to the Roundtable for their next discussion, and then another banishment. Everyone is seated in the room, waiting for the discussion to commence. As a reminder, Darren, Zach, Alessandro, and Nita will not be voting tonight. The other 17 players will get to vote later on. With that, the discussion may now begin, and Zach says he wants to begin once again, but Pablo interrupts and says he actually wants to begin instead because he'd like to address something. Zach thanks Pablo for interrupting, but he's going to start anyway because it has to do with him. He states that Pablo and Haley are most definitely working together as traitors based on the whole day one incident. He doesn't have to explain it again. Basically, if they vote Haley out tonight and she's a traitor, they can get Pablo tomorrow. Pablo smiles and calls Zach ignorant. He is definitely a tunneler in this game, one who solely focuses on one or two people as their top suspects and nobody else. It's harming the faithful team quite a lot. Zach then states that the castle actually trusts him, because otherwise he wouldn't have the shield for tonight. Everyone is stunned to hear Zach out his own shield, and Pablo laughs in response. Zach says that it's imperative they vote Haley out to help the faithful prove or disprove the main theory going around for days now. Kira then asks Haley if she has anything to say, and Haley says that she doesn't think Zach is a traitor. She instead thinks Darla is one. Darla squints in response and asks why, and Haley says that Darla jumped her way too quickly yesterday. It's really strange behavior, and many people have agreed with her on that. Darla asks who, and Krael speaks up, saying that he thinks it's Darla as well. Darla then defends herself, claiming that she speaks her own mind and doesn't jump onto theories and ideas. She decided on her own that based on what Pablo stated day one about Haley, it shows that Haley wasn't sitting still when the traitors were being chosen. That is enough evidence to her that Haley is a traitor, and for whatever reason, Pablo doesn't seem to think that anymore. Pablo says that to him, it's way too obvious to be Haley. No offense, but she's not playing the game well at all. She's playing like a messy faithful. Instead, he's looking at Darla because she's playing into this common strategy of jumping in with the herd to accuse someone, that someone being Haley. Darla once again states that she never jumped with any herd. She has had multiple conversations with other people about her suspect being Haley. Alessandro then decides to speak up as he wants to be more vocal at these roundtables. He apologizes to a certain someone he's going to call out, but they strike him as very odd. In his eyes, Nita strikes him as a traitor based on the previous murder. Nita immediately turns to Alessandro, shocked to hear her own name. Danielle then surprisingly jumps in to back up Alessandro. To her, it seems way too convenient that Pascal died so soon, considering they didn't end on the greatest of terms in their last season together. Nita says she's confused because she has nothing against Pascal as a person or player. If people really think this was some revenge kill, they are out of their mind because Pascal has not said a single bad word about her. Christephanie then backs up Nita, claiming that it's likely a reality star traitor tried to frame Nita for this kill, and that's something Alessandro might be doing right now since nobody has brought up Nita's name yet. Penelope speaks up, claiming that she too said Nita's name earlier in the day, and that's because of her weird attitude. Nita flicks off Penelope, telling her to shut up about this whole attitude crap. Penelope laughs and says that this type of attitude is the one she's talking about. She's a witch, or perhaps a hag. Nita is shocked by these words and tells Penelope to shut up once again. Amira tells Penelope she's going too far and that they shouldn't have any personal digs in this game. It's just a game at the end of the day. Danielle then apologizes to Nita because she loves her as a person, but this whole Pascal murder is just odd to her. Nita says that they can't fully base a decision off of a murder. Framing exists, and she's starting to really think someone is framing her. Darren then jumps in to accuse Danielle because she's easily jumping onto this Nita theory without seemingly mentioning her name before. To him, she would make a great traitor because she's not only competitive by nature, but she's also in this weird trio relationship with Christephanie and Alessandro. Danielle tells Darren that it's not fair to metagame, so she'll only respond to his thought that she's jumping onto a name without any prior accusations. In this game, you want to throw people under the bus and test their survival skills at the Roundtable. The problem with focusing on a few people per round is that the true traitors can hide in the background without much worry. To her, Nita is just a confusing player. Penelope says she has to mention how Nita put her vote onto Emma last night. No faithful actually thinks Emma is a traitor. Emma says this is true, but she's more confident that Darla is a traitor because in Nita's defense, she is just jealous of her because she's much older and uglier. Nita places her head on the table in reaction to Emma's delusion. Cassandra then straight up says that Emma is a traitor in the real world. She's a bully. However, in this game, she's unfortunately a faithful, and she'd rather spend her time questioning people she truly suspects in this game. Therefore, she wants to ask Christephanie why she is so quiet at these round tables. It strikes to her as odd, considering she was very outspoken on Teams at War. Christephanie says that there's not enough room for everyone to chat tonight, considering the amount of accusations being thrown left and right. In fact, many people haven't spoken tonight, such as Olivia, Kira, Sasha, Yasu, and James. Actually, she'd like to mention that Sasha and Yasu said they would press James at the table tonight, but neither have said a word, which is just weird to her. Sasha immediately looks at Christephanie and says no multiple times. She won't let Chris drag her right now for no apparent reason. Christephanie then asks Sasha why she isn't calling out James tonight, considering they are running out of discussion time. Sasha says that she spent a bunch of her time today talking to people about their thoughts on James, and people seem to want other players banished first, so she's avoiding any additional confusion. Christephanie then asks her why she isn't bringing it up anyway, considering she could get murdered at night, and Sasha says that she had plenty of chats with people about James already, so they could point that out if she ended up murdered the next night. The discussion is now over, meaning the 17 voters must now cast a vote for one other player they believe is a traitor. In confessional, Nita starts to cry because she feels super stressed after everything that happened tonight. She did not expect Alessandro and Danielle to jump her so much. And then of course, Penelope, who is an asshole in the game and real life, decides to jump her too. It's just hard to take all of that in, considering she felt super safe not too long ago. In another confessional, Sasha says that Christephanie is acting so weird all of a sudden. Cassandra made a point about her right before the discussion ended, and then Christephanie deflected onto her and Yasu. This will be noted. Everyone has finished voting, so it's time to reveal the votes one at a time, starting with Amira. Amira shows her vote for Haley because she's just a huge wild card at this point. Half the castle says she's a traitor, and the other half don't believe it. So it's best to just cut the tension and figure out what the hell Haley's role is. Krael is next and he shows his vote for Darla. He said he would vote for her based on the points brought up against her, and she did a poor job defending herself, in his eyes at least. Penelope then goes next and shows that she voted for Nita. If she's exiting the game sometime soon, she at least wants to leave the game knowing that she voted for a traitor and tried getting them out. Yasu is next, and he reveals his slate with Christephanie's name on it. He doesn't like how she reacted to her name coming up tonight. It seemed like a very obvious deflection strategy. We're now at 1 vote Christephanie, 1 vote Darla, 1 vote Haley, and 1 vote Nita. Darla is next, and she says she voted for Haley. She made it clear since day one that she thinks she's the traitor based on the whole noise accusation from Pablo. Danielle is next, and she voted for Nita. She says that although people think she's randomly jumping onto Nita's back right now, she had this gut feeling it was Nita all day today, because who else would kill Pascal? That's 2 votes Haley, 2 votes Nita, 1 vote Darla, 1 vote Christephanie. Christephanie is asked to go next, and she shows that she voted for Haley. Despite everything that happened last minute at the discussion, she still believes Haley is a traitor. We're now at 3 votes Haley, 2 for Nita, and 1 vote Darla and Christephanie each. Cassandra goes next, and she reveals her vote for Haley. At the end of the day, Haley has been a suspect for a long time, and the faithful need to figure out what's going on by confirming her true role in the game. Crystal is next, and she shows her vote for Haley. She's doing a very poor job every time she has to defend herself, and she seems very deflated at this point, as if she's giving up. We're now at 5 votes for Haley, 2 for Nita, 1 for Darla, and 1 for Christephanie. 8 votes remain, and Olivia is up next. She reveals her vote for Krael and simply says that she never got to speak up about her suspicion of Krael yet, but he's constantly floating around from group to group conversation, always agreeing with what people's thoughts are. Krael then squints in confusion, and Emma is asked to show her vote next. She shows that she voted for Darla and says that she knows for a fact that Darla is a traitor, so she has to go. We're at 5 votes Haley, 2 votes Nita, 2 votes Darla, 1 vote Christephanie, and 1 vote Krael. Jonathan is next, and he shows his vote for Nita. Even though he loves her as a person, he doesn't love her in this game. James is up next, and he says that he's a bit confused by the whole Sasha and Yasu stuff going on, and he's unsure why they didn't come to him, that they think he's a traitor, but regardless, he's voting Haley tonight because he's pretty sure she's a traitor by this point. 6 votes Haley, 3 votes Nita, 2 for Darla, 1 vote Christephanie, and 1 for Krael. Only 4 votes remain unread. Kira is asked to go next, and she says she's very sorry, but she's voting Haley because she's jumping the wrong people at these round tables. Pablo goes next, and he sighs as he shows his vote for Darla. He's pretty sure she's a traitor, but it doesn't seem she's going home tonight. Haley is next, and she flips her slate to reveal Darla's name, but she doesn't say anything as for her reasoning. Finally, Sasha has to reveal her vote, and she shows her vote for Christephanie. Although there are other people on the chopping block tonight, she wants to give herself brownie points by voting a person she is certain is a traitor. Before what Chris said about her, she trusted her. But now, she doesn't. So with 7 votes, Haley has been banished from the castle and is asked to come to the front to reveal her role. Pablo looks at Haley, hoping to God that she's not a traitor. Everyone watches as Haley steps up to the front, and she faces the rest. She says that she came into this game without knowing what to expect. This was a very tough game to play, and she can finally admit that she's not good at it. However, there were many things done and said about her that could have been skipped. She doesn't like how people have treated her, but regardless, they may as well celebrate now that they got their first traitor out. Everyone begins cheering, while Emma remains seated as she's a bit pissed. In confessional, Darla is amazed that the faithful team got out their first traitor. Her gut feeling about Haley was right, and she's glad she took her shot at her. Now Emma can sulk all she wants because nobody will ever believe a word she says from now on. In another confessional with Christephanie, she says that the sacrifice of Haley was absolutely necessary to keep the Traitors team as strong as possible. Unfortunately, herself, Nita, and James all got heat today, mainly because they have been protecting each other as much as possible, so now they have to figure out how they should move forward without getting banished. In the room, Nita says that despite all the drama that went down tonight, she's just very proud of the team for getting out the correct person. Crayel claps and says well done as well, and in confessional, Crayel laughs to himself as the one and only Olivia decided to throw his name out there tonight out of nowhere. She said he's floating between group chats, but he doesn't see that as the case. He was mostly talking with Emma, Haley, Pablo, Penelope, and a few others who supported their ideas. If Olivia continues to throw his name out there tomorrow, he doesn't mind throwing her name out there as well to test her emotions a bit. Now that the faithful have built up their confidence with one traitor out of the game, the gameplay continues, and in a group chat with Sasha, Yasu, Cassandra, Darren, and James asks Sasha and Yasu to clarify why they think he's a traitor. Sasha then tells James that she felt like he was playing up this innocent nurse James role way too much, turning his reactions at the breakfast to seem fake. James says he's just confused why they didn't confront him with this information. It took Chris to expose it at the table. In confessional, James cannot trust Sasha and Yasu for a single second. One of them might have to get murdered tonight in order to chop up their little duo. Sasha then tells James that it's nothing personal, and if anything, she's now more suspicious of Christephanie and perhaps less suspicious of him. Chris suddenly put it out there that she and Yasu said James' name before, yet they never brought it up at the table, so now she's assuming Chris is a traitor who is trying to get James in the hot seat, who is really a faithful now. In confessional, Sasha says that she initially thought James was a traitor, but after everything Christephanie did at the table tonight, she might be the true traitor who panicked when her name came up. Cassandra then says that she basically clocked Christephanie. It goes to show how important it is to call people out while they seem comfortable. In another room, Christephanie sits with Olivia, Jonathan, and Emma, and she tells the three how shocked she is that Cassandra randomly decided to call her out and expected her to react neutrally. Of course, if you start accusing someone out of nowhere, they might seem like scrambled eggs at first. The whole roundtable, everyone discussed Haley's name, Pablo's name, Darla's name, and Nita's name. That was the main focus. Emma says she always had a strange feeling about Cassandra and Darren. She personally feels like Cassandra is doing Darren's dirty work since Darren is likely a traitor. In confessional, Emma says that she's seeing signs of Darren being a traitor now. It's evident that it has to be one of the two in the power couple, so it's probably Darren in that case. Jonathan then says that he's still stuck on the fact that Darren survived the first murder. It doesn't add up to him. Olivia says she sees where he's coming from, since normally you'd want to split up a romance. In confessional, Christephanie says that if she were a faithful, she'd know to call out immediately that Darren was kept around the first night to act as a shield for the traitors. However, she herself is in danger after everything that went down at the roundtable, so she has to remain quiet and allow Emma and Jonathan to think that the traitor is Darren. His girlfriend tried to test her at the table, so she doesn't feel bad for remaining quiet. With nighttime now here, the players say goodnight to each other and begin heading to their individual bedrooms. In confessional, Zach says that he regrets revealing his shield at the table today. The traitors are technically getting a free kill now, which sucks. People might even consider him as a traitor for feeling so comfortable coming out with the shield. Hopefully not though, and people will trust him when he says that Pablo is the traitor. The moon is officially up, and the 4 remaining traitors meet up at the turret and unveil their hoodies. They all breathe out from their nerves after losing Haley, but Nita says that she was a necessary sacrifice. James is glad she voted Darla because if she voted any of the traitors, she could have easily made them look guilty. Christephanie then says that it's possible people might look at Darla because Haley remained quiet with her vote, but it's also possible that everyone is more worried about Pablo and Nita. Nita breathes out because she realizes how much danger she is in going forward. She calls Danielle a sneaky snake of a player. James says he's just glad their weakest link went home tonight. Olivia then explains that she's trying to get Crael voted out soon. She wants to continue pushing that he's floating from group to group, and it'll make him nervous to the point where he self-destructs. In that case, it's best to just keep him alive and use their murder choice on someone else. Christephanie then says that if they want to frame Darla further, they need to kill her number 1, Kira. If they do, they can try the angle of Darla murdering her own friend to try lessening the suspicion on herself. James likes that idea, especially because Kira has openly said many times that Darla is her closest friend in here. Nita then suggests they murder Yasu. The reason Yasu would be a good kill is because he's tight with Sasha, and those two are a deadly duo that cannot be underestimated. Chris agrees and says that killing Yasu is better than killing Sasha because Yasu wasn't the one directly accusing her as a traitor. Olivia then claims that Emma would be another good option for murder since she's a chaotic player. The upside in keeping Emma is that nobody will be influenced by her. The downside is that she will always be kept around and will never be banished. Christephanie then goes over their 3 options again. They will either murder Kira, Yasu, or Emma. The 4 then agree on a name and write down the name on their scroll. They throw it in the hole ahead and wish each other luck for another day of stress.